Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Citizen for Informed Land Uses, or as we colloquially like to say, CILU's 2021 Spring Primary Candidate Forum. I am Karen Strickland, and with me is Regina Crisione. We are the co-presidents of CILU. Behind backstage are R.G. Malonis and Mary Rose Little, who are doing a backup IT and hopefully keeping us all moving along in a good direction. CILU, or Citizens for Informed Land Use, is a nonpartisan grassroots Homedell organization started in 1998 to protect our open space and natural resources. So over our 22 years of existence, we have been successful at various open space preservation initiatives to protect our watershed. And we also promote government transparency, which requires an informed citizenry. And it is to that end that we are holding this candidate forum. One of the most significant accomplishments of our group has been the preservation and development of the Reminiscent Brook Greenway Tract, formerly Chase Tract, park and hiking trails. So as you walk through the woods from Homedell Park to Bayonet Farm, you will be enjoying the efforts of many community volunteer members of CILU. And at the end of this meeting, I'm going to invite you all to come and join us. So, yay! The New Jersey's June 8th primary election will be conducted in person. However, ballots were sent out to people who had requested them in previous elections. So if you got one after tonight, you can select your candidates and send the ballots in. There are different ballots for the primary election for the Republicans or the Democrats. We are so fortunate to have with us two candidates who are running for the Republican spot, Mr. Ron Emma and Mr. Rocco Impreveduto. And then we have the candidate who's running for the Democratic seat, Mr. Rahul Diddi. We're very thankful that they came to join us and are willing to share their time and energy. It's really, really hard to run for office, and the fact that these people are willing to do this for us and share of themselves and give up their family life is really a blessing for us all, and they have to be thanked a lot. So back to the details of the election. If you are concerned about whether you're going to get a ballot or how to vote or have any questions, we have a wonderful resource. I'm going to share my screen for 1 second here. Monmouth County Votes. This is a really wonderful site that, oops, I don't know what you can see, Monmouth County Votes, and you can go there, Monmouth County Votes, and you can learn all about the questions that need to be answered for poll workers and voter registration and requesting a ballot, all those details. So without further ado, where people are entering and we're getting to start. The deadline for requesting ballots is tomorrow, June 1st. So thank you to our candidates. Please note, this is not a debate. This forum, this is a meeting, is a forum. The questions have been sent in to Regina Crisione, my co-president, and I'm using my she's been receiving questions all day. Oh my goodness. See, you guys are all gonna do better than I am. She's been receiving questions all day and has organized them to reduce duplicates and remove biased and prejudicial language. The event is being live streamed, recorded, and will be posted to the CILU YouTube channel after the event. It will not be edited. The forum will proceed in the following fashion. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to give opening remarks. Then Ms. Crisione will ask the questions, and each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to respond. At the end of a minute, I will hold up a yellow card indicating 30 seconds remain. People in the audience cannot see this yellow card, but the candidates can see it. So you in the audience can rest assured that they are all being given the same amount of 30 seconds of time. Then at the end of 1.5 minutes, I will hold up a red card and I will say thank you, and the candidates will stop. And then Mr. Malone will so something came on. We gotta move. Okay.
That was my fault. I'm on audio on my phone now.
Okay. So we're all working at figuring these things out. So we're holding up this card, and then I'll hold a red card, and Mr. Malonis will hit end. So we are now, I'm going to switch to speaker mode. And Regina, I'm going to give it over to you.
I would just like to make one correction. The deadline to register to vote is tomorrow, May 18th. And the deadline to get a mail-in, to request a mail-in ballot is June 1st. Karen got that a little wrong.
Okay.
Okay, so we're starting with opening comments and we're going in alphabetical order. You have 2 minutes each, so Mr. Diddi, you would start.
Do I start? Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you to CILU board for organizing this forum. Thank you to all Homedell residents who have tuned in today. I have been a Homedell resident for 20 years. I come from a family of professionals also devoted to public service, academia, and business that included a state police chief, barristers, my mother, a leading women's rights lawyer, co-nominated to the Nobel Peace Prize, my father, a social worker and published poet, and others who have been successful in business. My wife is an education consultant in New Jersey, and my daughter, a Homedell High and Wellesley grad, is a renewables energy investment professional in New York. I serve as a trustee and treasurer of the Homedell India Association. I studied finance at Wharton and at Western Michigan University, where I was a graduate fellow and served on the finance and budget committee of the university. I'm an investments professional. My platform is transparency in governance, focus on improving education, clean energy and open space, review of safety issues at all intersections in Homedell, improve lives of senior citizens. The pilot money that we receive from Bellworks, etc., should make its way to the Board of Ed, as was promised by former Mayor Serena DiMasso. We need a plan to get our school system in the top 4 in New Jersey again. Closure of Fire Department #1 under former Mayor Pat Impreveduto reduced safety in South Homedell, and our home insurance went up. Township's bond rating went down, and the cost of capital went up. And on open space issues, I stand on the tall shoulders of Democrats, former Mayor Larry Fink and former Deputy Mayor Janet Burke. I look forward to your questions, and thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Emma now.
Thank you, CILU, for the opportunity tonight to highlight who I am and what I stand for. And also as well, thank you, CILU, for the tremendous work that you do for our town and our open space. My name is Ron Emma. I've been a resident since 2007. I'm married, have a daughter graduating from Homedell High next month. More info on my background is available on our website, homedellrepublicanparty.org. In 2015-16, Homedell was under attack. Our open space and bucolic way of life was threatened by a mega sports complex, Capelli Sports Complex, on Route 520. I got involved and helped defeat this Olympic-sized for-profit enterprise. After this defeat, under Mayor Impreveduto's tenure, the attempt for turf fields and 80-foot life towers were then switched to Cross Farm Park. Again, I got engaged to fight this, as evidenced by my many township committee meetings, appearances. This is one of the reasons I've been endorsed by one of the preeminent conservation groups in town, Preserve Homedell. I thank them for their support. In 2014, when Mayor Impreveduto closed Firehouse #1, there was no plan in place in regard to the fire safety of South Homedell, and there was no adequate coverage for 5 years. Again, I got involved. In 2019, I was a founding member of FAST, Fire Action Safety Today, who were instrumental in pressing the TC for a new fire truck and a centrally located fire station. There's even a video on my website of the TC meeting approving the purchase of the truck and thanking me for my efforts. All of these attacks on open space and public safety occurred in my opponent's own district. Unlike my opponent, I have a record and firmly believe actions speak louder than words. You're going to hear tonight from my opponent. He's the real only endorsed Republican candidate in the race. Let me be clear. If you're being endorsed by the political machine that is the Monmouth County Republican Committee, and that's one that you're proud of, then I have a simple question. What has the Monmouth County Republican Committee done?
Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much. The 2 minutes were up. You can continue later. Mr. Impreveduto, your turn. Oh, you need to unmute.
Can you hear me okay now?
Nice
Yes.
and clear, yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. Sorry. So my name is Rocco Impreveduto. I am the unanimously endorsed Republican candidate for Homedell Township Committee. I was fortunate enough to graduate Homedell High School many, many years ago, and then be able to bring my family back to this town. And, it's a wonderful place to raise a family. I have 3 wonderful kids. It's really been a dream come true. And since I've come back, I've had the privilege of serving our community in a variety of capacities. And because of that, I really understand the issues that we all care about. And that's why my platform, for lack of a better term, is all inclusive. There's something to benefit most everyone. We have a plan to provide services for our seniors, for our youth, a plan to invest in their future, for land preservation, how we can preserve more open space. Particularly, I think about Potter Farm as a great spot for us to start with. For our veterans, dedicating streets, subnaming streets in Homedell after them. For our first responders, ensuring that they have the full-throated support of our township committee. And then for all of us, providing tax relief. The pilot program, for example, has delivered more than $2.5 million beyond budget expectations. I've confirmed that if the township budgets for it, we actually can provide, for lack of a better term, a rebate back to the residents of Homedell. These are things that concern all of us in a variety of ways. But what concerns me most, and I say this heavily, because I don't want to cast a pall on this event. My opponent speaks deeply about ethics and transparency, but his ads on social media don't comply with election law. All political candidates are required to have paid for by language on there. The company boosting his post and allegedly paying for it, Savant Services, is not registered with ELEC. They're legally required to be if they are paying for political communications. And the simple question is, who's paying for these things? So my opponent sits here and preaches ethics and transparency, which are table stakes, the very basics anybody should bring to the table here if you're looking to govern. And he can't even manage his campaign with ethics and transparency.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, on to the first question. We will start with Mr. Emma. It's about taxes. If elected, what are your plans to lower our real estate taxes?
Thank you.
Okay.
There's a number of ways.
Wait a second. Wait a second. I got to figure out something is, let's see. The spotlight is not add spotlight. Okay. All right. So I'm sorry. I got it. All right. There you go, Mr. Emma. Go ahead, begin.
Thank you. There's after public safety, obviously taxes is a number one priority for our residents. And let me just refute what Rocco just said. Of course, we are registered with ELECT. Of course, our ads, if you check our lawn signs on our ads, they all say paid for by Emma for Homedell TC. So that's just not true at all. As far as the taxes are concerned, there's a variety of ways to lower our taxes. There's 2 things. We can either increase our revenue or look at spending, decreasing our spending. And by doing shared services with other towns, which I know Prakash Constantine has been very instrumental in trying to do more of that. I would also like to try to do more of that. I think that the Monmouth County Library is something that maybe we could look at. That cost the town $600,000, and possibly taking that over and making it a Homedell library rather than a branch of the Monmouth County library system would save hundreds of thousands of dollars. We also have to look at, if we're going to keep our taxes flat or low, we have to really start looking. We just can't do it without any development, but it's got to be smart development. It's got to be passive development that doesn't increase traffic, that is put in the right spots, which would be really the Route 35 corridor, smart development that doesn't increase our traffic. And for the southern part of
Thank
Homedell.
you.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Impreveduto.
Could you repeat that question, please?
Sure. If elected, what are your plans to lower our real estate taxes?
Sure. I think it starts with, number one, a greater rigor on budgeting within the township, first and foremost. If elected, what I would ask of all the township organizations under the auspices is to start with a zero budget, identify fixed costs, measure variable costs, and cap everything at 2% and make consumption choices from there. Then when we start looking at budget overages, like the pilot money, how do we apply that to provide relief to the town? Further to that point, I think it should also be mentioned that your taxes went up nearly 2% over the prior year. It's about $250,000 increase in municipal tax revenue. So the question really becomes, what are we doing with that money? And I think the reality of it is there's surplus coming in and nothing's being done to benefit the people of the town. So, it's about keeping taxes down by applying greater rigor, by finding shared service opportunities. And when you have surplus and opportunity, giving back to the folk, giving back to the residents. We're in a difficult economic time. And many residents, including our seniors, are on fixed income. And just to clarify, it sounds like he needs it from Mr. Emma. Savant Services, I'm told, is not registered with Elect, and they are paying for your ads on Facebook. So just want to make sure that we understand each other on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Diddi, please. You have to unmute.
I said, while my opponents are busy throwing mud on each other, it looks like to me, it looks like the key issue is, first of all, the Board of Ed needs to make sure that the discretionary spend that they have, it needs to be brought into some check, because our ratings are going down, but the expenditure per child has been going up. And there's some disconnect there, and we need to look into that matter very carefully. The Board of Ed this year it endorsed a flat tax, and I understand that that the current chairman of Board of Ed is running for assembly. Maybe that affected the issue. But as a result, we are shortchanged by almost $1 million, and we also got to make sure that the pilot money that is coming in, it is allocated appropriately, both partly after the discretionary spend is in check, partly to the Board of Ed and partly to reduce taxes.
You have 30 seconds more if you want to.
I think I've said my bit.
Okay, fine. Okay, we will move on to the next question then. This will be starting with Mr. Impreveduto. It's about the pilot. How should we allocate the millions in pilot revenue coming from Bell Works? Will the Board of Education share in these benefits in order to prevent tax increases? Two-part question.
Yeah, I think they should, right? So the first part of it is, and I think I alluded to it already once, if the money's coming in over budget, I think it would be the right thing for the township to do to find a way to give some back to the residents. Again, we talk about taxes going up every year. I'm not talking about the tax rate. I'm talking about the dollars coming out of your pocket going up every year to the town and services not improving. So if we're not going to improve services, then why don't we at least give folks some money back, particularly for our seniors who we know are on a fixed income. And let's face it, not all of them are making 6 and 7 figures. I do think, and we know legally it can be done, the pilot should contribute to the school system. People move here for our school system. I'm a product of this school system, a proud product of this school system. And I think that should be done to help alleviate some other costs and direct more money to the emotional, physical, and mental well-being and health of our students. I think it's a travesty, frankly, that the township does not pay for public safety at our schools. They do not pay for security at our schools. They leave it to the Board of Ed to pay that $300,000 bill. The township is responsible for public safety. They should want to protect our kids. That $300,000 at a minimum should be redirected back to our kids. And that's before you start even getting into the discussion about what we should do with the pilot money.
Thank you. Mr. Didi.
Well, talking about security issues and schools, that's a whole different ballgame. That brings us to issues that are perhaps not even pertinent to the township discussion. Schools have suffered all across the country, and these are issues connected to gun violence. And I don't think that security issues by spending some money to protect schools is going to entirely stop those issues. Number one. Secondly, I think that the pilot money, of course, it needs to stabilize a little bit first. I believe that last year the pilot money went down, and as a result, some of the companies who were part of the Bellworks program were able to apply for PPP money, and also Homedell town was able to receive municipal support from the federal government as well. But I believe that the pilot program money partly definitely needs to go for improving the school system once the Board of Ed discretionary spend is more in check.
Thank you. Mr. Emma.
First, I'd just like to ask you, in Rocco's opening statement, he alluded that he served the community. I think you put it in a variety of ways. I'd like you to outline or highlight some of the ways that you actually have.
Sorry, this is not a debate. The questions are being asked by Ms. Criscione, and then we're going back and forth. So we're not engaging in any kind of back and forth.
Okay.
It's the way we set it up is more like an opportunity for every candidate to, let me stop my talking here so you don't lose your time. But we don't want attacks. This is not a situation for personal attacks. This is just a situation for the community in a nice way to learn what the candidates think about different issues.
So can I refute the statements that are said, or?
You can refute anything that was said about you, but yourself, I would prefer that you not attack anybody else.
Okay, then I would say that the township actually does pay for public safety at schools. They pay for the uniforms, they pay for the ammunition, they pay for the guns of the school safety officers. So it's not a fact that the township doesn't contribute to the public safety at the school. So that's that. As far as the pilot money, my opponent has indicated a willingness to send additional pilot money to the BOE. I'm not running for the BOE, but it doesn't seem like a very good idea to me to send any more than the 68 cents of all of our tax dollars that the BOE gets. We, as the township, only get 17%, 17 cents on the dollar. How much more are you proposing to send to the BOE? We all know that SAT scores and our rankings are trending in the wrong direction. So as far as sending additional pilot money to the BOE, again, I'm not running for the BOE, but I think the BOE has to get their house in order before we start talking about sending any more pilot money to the schools. However, in addition, the 2020 hasn't been, pilot money hasn't been audited yet. We actually may have to refund some of the money back to Bellworks because of the pandemic and the loss of revenue that Bellworks has seen during the pandemic. So we actually may have to refund some of the money. So there is not going to be a surplus until we get the audited statements of 2020. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next question. This will be about the fire department, and it's addressed first to Mr. Didi. What is your position on an incentive program to increase membership in the fire department? What about a paid fire staff?
Well, I think that first of all, improving the fire department is an extremely important task that needs to be done. Improving our ISO ratings and the fire ratings, in short, is very, very important, not only for safety issues, but also it helps to reduce our home insurance costs. It reduces the cost of capital, and improves the bond rating for the school itself, the school system, and for the township to raise any funding through any bond issuances. So I think raising and improving the fire system is extremely important, number one. Secondly, I don't know why the fire department number one was closed by my opponent, Rocco Impreveduto's kin, if I would use that word, his father in the past. And that I believe that in South Homedell, that definitely reduced safety. I'm told that 5 homes were burnt down in this time period. So I would say that that improving the volunteer system and also encouraging people to participate, and perhaps having some, I don't know, for lack of another word, stipend to begin with, to encourage, I think would be important.
Thank you. Mr. Emma.
I wholeheartedly agree with Raul's comments about closing in firehouse number one. Our ISO rating has decreased. Our homeowners insurance has gone through the roof. And when Mayor Impreveduto closed the firehouse on South Homedell on my side of town, there wasn't a plan for 5 years to replace that. So as far as a paid fire department, if you read Dr. Carr's report, which I did, front to back, he does mention that the demographics of Homedell would be not conducive to a all volunteer fire department. However, we have to laud our great volunteers that we do have, both the fire and the first aid squad. And I just don't think we have, no one wants to see our taxes raised, and to do a partially paid fire department at this point, I think is not the right way to go, because it will probably, without knowing how much it costs, of course, but one can probably assume that it would affect our taxes in a negative way.
Thank you. Mr. Impreveduto, please.
Oh, you need to unmute.
Oh, I had such a good start going. Just a point of clarification.
Let's see now, we got wait, stop. We got the wrong picture of you up.
Uh-oh.
Let's get the right picture. Spotlight here. Okay, so now we have you. I'm going to stop this thing. I'm going to reset it. Okay, now we're ready to start.
Live television, folks. Here we go. I do just want to clarify a statement. I'm going to quote Mayor Bontempo from last year's CILU event, actually, when he said Firehouse One shut themselves down. And then that was followed up with, based on their behaviors and their lack of training. And then Mr. Emma certainly followed up and indicated, of course, it was a 5-0 vote to shut that firehouse down, which included Mayor Bontempo's vote in favor of that. I am in favor of anything that's going to keep our township safer. I'm in favor of looking at what other towns do for their volunteer fire departments and seeing if there are activities, thoughts, creative ideas that we can mimic or co-opt and make our own to ensure that we can continue to recruit. We certainly want to make sure that they have state-of-the-art equipment. I know Dr. Rocco Pascucci, former committeeman, worked extremely hard to get the firehouse and the fire truck and the new fire truck in the township's hands. And obviously, I'm a big fan of the work he did there. At the end of the day, public safety is the priority, right? Along with our taxes. And so do I think a paid fire department is the right way to go? No, I don't. Not without a clear assessment on what it would do to our taxes. And I suspect it would raise our taxes substantially. But I do think there are probably other ideas out there and other things we can do that other successful towns are engaging in. And I think we should start there. Thank you.
The next question, we will start with Mr. Emma. It's about recreation for seniors. If elected, what would you propose to do to benefit our senior residents?
Well, as you know, there was a rec study done in 2018, and the priorities were listed in that rec study. And obviously, there is a lot of talk and clamor for additional fields in town. However, number one on that list, I think I have it here somewhere, was the passive investment into the bike trails and walking paths that we have for our seniors. So I'm fully on board with backing that and making sure that there is more bike trails. I know Deputy Mayor Weber is looking into connecting more of our trails and bike paths as well. There is also talk of a rec center, an indoor rec center, which also could be used by the seniors. And I think that's something that we should explore. Again, depending on how much it costs, but I think a study should be done on an indoor rec center.
Thank you. Mr. Impreveduto.
Are we talking recreation services only for seniors or services overall? Sorry, just for
Seniors.
clarification.
What would you do? What would you propose to do to benefit our senior residents?
Sure. So look, I think it's one of the most interesting things to me is that every year we go around asking for our seniors to vote for us, particularly as Republicans, and we have yet to provide them with any sort of tangible return for that vote. So first, my first plan, part of my plan would be to provide free transport to and from local medical appointments for seniors. If we block off about a 4-hour window each day, the cost that I've estimated would be under $50,000 annually. They can sign up. I have spoken to some of the presidents of the 55 and over active community associations, and it's something one of them in particular has been trying to do. I do think we need a senior liaison at town hall so that they can address issues and concerns and questions from seniors. I also think we have an opportunity, and again, no cost, right? When someone turns 62, provide them an ID card, put their emergency contact information on the back, let them show it at a football game, at a Homedell Theater Company event, at Harvest Fest, provide them discounts to community activities, provide them opportunities to re-engage, maybe at a level now since their kids have gone on and graduated and become more a deeper part of our community in that way. And if it's successful, then let's talk to local businesses about providing seniors with discounts for local in-town businesses as well. You know, this is about doing more for people. Everything I've spoken about and campaigned about is doing more and doing better. And we can do that. Everything I just stated would have no impact on the tax rate. We're talking under $50,000 against a $25 million budget.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Didi.
Well, two things, that my opponent Rocco said, I'd like to point out. First of all, if you talk about doctor visits, the issue about liability and seniors comes up. So we need to make sure that we are well protected on that, and that is actually doable besides the $50,000 that he's actually talking about, which I don't know if it's 50,000 or it's higher, but liability, I think, is a very, very important concern regarding that, first of all. Secondly, we've been talking about helping seniors, but the first and foremost thing that seniors are looking for is not to raise taxes. And in order not to raise taxes, because they're not recipients of benefit from the school system for their children usually, I think that talk about additional turf fields probably needs to stop, because we have a turf field in our school already, and to have an additional turf field which is essentially going to be used for groups which are for-profit groups, and even though it may be owned by HYAA, but there are groups who are going to be for-profit groups that would come to use it, and groups that are making $1 million in revenue. It needs to be, if it was to be done, it had to be done in a way that that the town would not be paying for that. But I'm glad that the turf field issue, was set aside.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, the next question is about sports fields. We'll start with Mr. Impreveduto. What is your position on the expansion and lighting of sports fields? Two-part question. And what can be done to protect nearby homeowners who could be impacted by the noise and increased traffic from sports fields on either Cross Farm, Crawford's Corner Road, or the Pool Club?
Just making sure I get the note down. Look, I think our determination on what we do with sports fields, whenever we think about how we want to advance or if you want to call it upgrade or differentiate our facilities, whatever they may be, we have to take into account how many people it will positively impact in the town, right? Everything should be quantifiable. I am not in favor of additional fields at Cross Farm. I do think at the high school, there's an ample opportunity to put something there, and that shouldn't necessarily increase the traffic load considering the many fields that are already there and the number of students flowing in and out. You know, as it stands right now, and I appreciate Committeeman Santana, the analysis he did on the cost of a turf field over a 30-year period. What he showed was that it's going to cost about 0.3% of the township budget, an average of $83,000 annually. When you take into account the number of kids that are involved in athletics in town, it's about a third of the overall of all the kids in town. So we're talking about 1,000 households, or 20% or so of the households in town. And so when you think about that, the question has to be, you know, what percent or fraction of a percent of a budget should be dedicated to benefit 20 to 25% of our township in a certain way. And I think coming out of the pandemic, I think that's certainly something, you know, increase and improved recreational facilities are really important. Getting outside and being able to safely social distance, whether we're talking about athletic fields or walking trails, these are all important things. They need to be quantified. They need to be quantified to understand the benefit and mass to the township. So I think the high school is a good spot.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Didi, please.
Well, regarding the AstroTurf, I've already laid my position out. I probably don't need to repeat that, number one. Number two, you know, as far as traffic loads are concerned, whether it's, you know, whether it's a stadium building or it's AstroTurf, it would definitely increase the traffic load. You know, if it was going to be a closed stadium that was going to be built with a whole bunch of lights coming out, I don't think that in the center of town, a lot of people were going to be happy with that. Number two. The third thing is that I'm for developing fields which are more environmentally oriented. You know, I'm more for developing fields, not regarding AstroTurfs additionally, but hey, maybe we have to think about grass courts. You know, grass courts, whether it's for tennis. I happen to be a tennis player, so I must say that I'm a little biased regarding that, right? But you know, whether it's for tennis or hockey or for soccer, you know, I think we need to think more about the environment, and you know, all talk about sports field needs to take that into account. That's what I feel. And talking about cross fields, I don't understand. My opponent Rocco is saying talking about cross fields, and he's for open space, but his father was I believe taking the cross fields out, you know, so I think there's some issues that need to be understood over there.
Thank you. Okay, next would be we're going right into turf fields. We'll start with you, Mr. Didi. You may as well continue. How would you address the environmental impacts of artificial turf fields on players and on our water supply?
I think I've already said my position regarding turf fields. I'm very clear about that. What we have in our Homedell school, you know, is good for the kids. We need to build on that, and any other fields to be built, you know, I don't think that necessarily additional turf fields need to be in Homedell. You know.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Emma.
Let me be very clear. As an ex-HYA softball and basketball coach, I'm acutely aware of the need for additional fields. It has to be done in an open and transparent process. It can't be whoever yells the loudest gets the limited recreation dollars available. I will meet with all recreation groups to foster a public-private partnership that puts the emphasis on Homedell kids. Any new additional fields has to include limitations on outside for-profit groups and actually when they can use it. Let's stop it's for the kids commentary. Everyone's for the kids. What our kids also need are for the existing facilities to be properly maintained and improved upon, as outlined in the 2018 rec survey and the subsequent HYA endorsed priorities and improvements. And let me remind everyone, the rec survey's priorities were not turf fields.
Thank you. Mr. Impreveduto.
Yeah, I mean, look, nobody is going to be an advocate for facilities that don't benefit Homedell's kids. This has to be for the volunteer groups. It has to be for HYA, could be for Homedell football, whatever it may be. That's why, you know, I think the one thing that's changed significantly since that survey was done was the explosive growth of lacrosse in town. And I think, you know, when you see 16 games canceled in a day because of rain, and you think about how many hundreds of families were impacted by that. I think that it warrants us considering an additional field. And I think it's necessary. It never comes, just to be very, very clear here, taxes are priority one, public safety is priority one, right alongside it, right? Nothing comes at the expense of those two things. But we know, but we've seen over time now the need for an additional field, for an additional opportunity for kids to be outside and to play. And it's, and I couldn't agree more. I mean, come on, no one wants to spend money on folks that are going to benefit from out of town. It's not what we're here for.
Thank you. Okay, the next question, we will start with Mr. Emma. It's about the land swap. What do you plan to do with the sod farm at Cross Farm Park? Keep it as open space, install sports fields, or give it to the county in a land swap? And second part of the question, if that land is traded with the county for the property by the high school, would you put a sports field there on Crawford's Corner Road?
As far as the land swap that's being discussed now, 115 acres that we own for 15 acres that the county owns across from the high school, that math just doesn't add up to me. I mean, why would we do 115 acres for 15 acres? 15 for 15, 10 for 15, or whatever it is. I know they want the house that's in the barn that's on the land. That would be something that, maybe we could do. And I know, again, Deputy Weber is working on trying to reduce the amount that we need. I think more importantly, what we need to do is put those lands that we own into Rossi, which will then take them off the potential low-income land use inventory for low-income housing. So that's really, rather than pursue a land swap, we need to put those lands that we own, as well as Bayonet Farms, into the Rossi, so they're off the low-income housing inventory forever, and they can only be used for recreation.
Okay, did you answer the question of what you would do specifically with the sod farm?
Again, I would put the sod farm into Rossi. And as far as would I put a sports field across from the high school, it's an intriguing location because it's across, right across the street. But I think there are better locations like the swim club, which we already own, which wouldn't even need us to do any land swap. So is it the best location? Probably not. But again, it's not, I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that we are actually going to build another turf field.
Okay, I do want to make a comment that your lighting everything seems to have darkened. You may want to turn a light on.
Lighting?
Yeah, it seems, you look very hazy. Is it just me?
I think I got plenty of light.
Oh, okay, fine. It's just my computer then. Never mind. Okay, next is Mr. Impreveduto.
I think what's most important is, and I'm hoping I'm answering the question, given the options that were available, I think it's most important that that land remains undeveloped and remains open space. So if there were a land swap to take place and the cost of that, of maintaining that land were to be incurred by the county, but it becomes part of the Homedell Park and will therefore remain undeveloped, I think it's worth considering. But most importantly, nothing should go there. Guys, I remember Cross Farm before there were fields on it, right? So, I go back further than I care to admit sometimes. So the preservation of that space, the rolling fields, of course, it's paramount. And I agree. Look, I think at the high school and I think at the pool club, there are options. If we go down the turf field route, those are the better options for it. So yeah, undeveloped, open space. It's worth assessing from a cost perspective if it goes to the county and is committed to being undeveloped land and becoming part of the park system. Worth considering if it's going to save us some money, right? But otherwise, leave it alone.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Diddi, you're last.
Just give a very simple and short answer, if I may. Not use up the 2 minutes at all. Just want to say that I'm neutral on swaps of land being proposed with the county, but feel each specific case needs a review. So I do all issues pertaining to one issue or the other. I think it needs to be reviewed on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, thank you. The next question will begin with Mr. Impreveduto. It's about Palmer Avenue. Considering the longstanding history of flooding on Palmer Avenue, do you think the planning board should approve the Barclay Square development there?
I have concerns with Palmer Avenue in general. I never wanted the affordable housing complex to go there. I thought across from Bayshore Hospital and North Beers would have been a better location. So I don't like the fact that there's development there to begin with. I don't like the fact that there's an expansion of development that they're speaking of. So no, in short, I'm not in favor of that. In fact, well, without getting into it, when I was on the planning board, I as a second alternate, by the way, it wasn't as if I was involved in every vote. When the vote did come down, I was not going to be in favor of the affordable housing going there. So,
Okay, thank you.
I'll give you some time back.
Mr. Didi.
I think that basically regarding affordable housing, I believe that the flooding issue, as far as the current if the Barclays Square complex is passed, it increases the chances for flooding coming from the Palmer Square area. I'm glad that a road was built and was raised so as to reduce the possibility of flooding in the area. But as I understand, the issue of Barclays Square is already in front of the planning board, and what I hear, it's almost about to be passed. So I don't know if the issue of Barclays Square, whether it is it's an issue or not. It looks like it's already a done, pardon me, deal. But the issue is more, regarding how do we plan for 2025, and in the 5 or 10 or 20-year plan further on, the affordable housing issues as they come up, we need to plan to see where additional complexes, if they are to be done according to the state law, where should that be coming in? And we need to plan for that adequately and appropriately, the sewer systems and all those issues involved.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Emma.
Thank you. As a member of the planning board, I cannot talk about any current plans before the board. However, as outlined in previous public postings, there was a development plan, not COA-related, before the planning board in 2015 that was adjacent to Palmer Square. That plan was unanimously rejected by the planning board due to flooding issues. Then in 2017, Mayor Impreveduto received a donation of $3,000 from that same developer. This is a fact. Coincidentally or not, that same plot of land was then added to the possible COA locations. That same developer is now in front of the planning board looking to develop that same plot for low-income housing. Again, I say actions speak louder than words.
Thank you. Okay, on to a new topic. We're calling this human relations. We will begin with Mr. Didi. What do you think the blue line on Crawford's Corner Road represents? Would you support removing it, repainting it, or allowing it to fade as was proposed by the Homedell Human Relations Committee?
Again, I'd like to be short on my answer to the question. I believe that the issue, we need to put the data in front of the people, and I believe that people should decide regarding the blue line issue. I don't have a particular position on the blue line issue.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Emma.
It's an easy one. Support for our great police department and support of basic human rights are not mutually exclusive. If I recall, the original meaning of the blue line was because of fallen Dallas police officers. I wholeheartedly reject removing the blue line. In fact, I'll pay for the blue paint to repaint it. I will always work to create monies for public safety and make those public safety issues a priority if I'm on the township committee.
Thank you. Mr. Impreveduto.
I think we actually have something Mr. M and I agree upon for the first time. I am wholeheartedly in favor of not only maintaining, but painting and painting again and repainting the blue line. It is in honor of those slain police officers. It is a symbol of pride for our town in that regard, and symbolism matters, right? As it relates to our first responders, in particular, our police officers. And I think that, it's something that we have to take seriously. And I think, somewhere along the way, if someone became for something, they had to be against something else. And I don't know why or how that happened. You can be for diversity and inclusion and support our police department. You can be for turf fields and support open space, right? These things are not, nothing, these things aren't binary, right? And you can have opinions, right? This is the greatest thing about the country is you can have an opinion and someone can disagree with you on the points of your opinion. And then you can agree to disagree and move forward. Or you can agree that maybe you're both right in your own way and find a way to collaborate and go forward in that way. So I am in favor of obviously keeping the blue line, painting the blue line, supporting our police, both tactically, physically, right, and symbolically.
Thank you. Okay, along that same idea of human relations, we will start with Mr. Emma on this question. During this time of heightened discrimination, what will you do to make our Asian community feel safe?
Well, first of all, what's going on in the Asian community and the attacks that you're seeing on the news are just completely outrageous, and there'll be zero tolerance for any kind of discrimination, specifically as it relates currently to the Asian population. I don't know what I could actually do to, actually protect the Asian community, but of course, we should come out strongly and condemn it. The Township Committee, I believe Mayor Bontempo has already done that. And as far as any concrete measures that I could personally do, I don't really know what else I can do other than to say I have zero tolerance for any type of discrimination.
Thank you. Mr. Impreveduto.
I think it's a great question and something that I'm happy to consider now and a little bit off the cuff, right? I mean, I think number one, to Mr. Emma's point, zero tolerance for hate, zero tolerance for discrimination, zero tolerance for violence. And we come out strongly and loudly against those actions. I think, the Asian community is a substantial population in our town. Perhaps it's time to have an Asian cultural liaison at Town Hall, someone to reach out to that community and understand the needs of that specific community. It's an idea, perhaps it's the right one, perhaps not. But I think, what I want to make sure we as a township committee get out of is the sort of behavior of doing the bare minimum, right? So of course we're going to condemn violence and acts of hate, but now if we have an opportunity to do something, let's do it. And maybe that's a way, right? Maybe that's a way to just become closer to that community, understand the needs more deeply, and to embrace them a little bit differently.
Thank you. Okay, and Mr. Diddi.
Well, to connect this question to the previous question, which was regarding the blue line, I want to say, first of all, I come from a family that has always supported the police. My own father-in-law was the state police chief in India, in our state, just like New Jersey is a state here, in our state of Punjab, he was the state police chief, number one. Secondly, of course, being an Asian myself, I come from India originally. I think that the issues that happened, whether it's in Georgia or otherwise, they definitely resonate, amongst the Asian community. I'm the treasurer of the Homedell India Association, which is a good, strong body, and there are other local ethnic groups too that have their own associations. And I'm glad that the federal government recently passed the appropriate law, which passed through the Senate and the House and signed by the president, that gives a better protection to the Asian community. And we want a very safe Homedell, and this is definitely a part of it.
Thank you. Okay, the next question is about affordable housing. We will start with Mr. Impreveduto. Development in town, in particular Palmer Avenue, Middle Road, and Potter's Farm, is being driven by affordable housing mandates. How will you address residents' concerns about overdevelopment?
Yeah, I mean, look, overdevelopment is something that is extremely troubling to me. And as I've knocked on so many doors in town across all areas, it's come up over and over again. Look, I think, when there's no land to be developed, then you can sort of blunt the affordable housing mandates. And so I think the preservation of open space, the preservation of land is probably our best path forward to stifle that effort. So when I think about Potter Farm, for example, I mean, Potter Farm, there's no better picture of Homedell when you're coming off the parkway than the farmland and the animals roaming free there, right? Finding ways to work with the county, work with the state, land grants, open space grants, whatever they may be, to pay market rate and to preserve that land. I think about South Beer Street as well. I think about North Beer Street as well. There's got to be a how, right? And I think it starts with the vision to do it. And if the vision is, and it's my vision, right, to stifle overdevelopment in this town, then you start laying the building blocks for how you're going to do that. And I think, to me, it really does start with the preservation of land, and the township getting more actively and aggressively involved in doing that. Every town gets these mandates, but a town like Rumson doesn't have any land to develop, so they don't have to put up the affordable housing complexes. So that's where it starts for me, for sure.
Thank you. Mr. Didi.
Well, talk about South Beer Street. I happen to live on South Beer Street, so I'm wondering where exactly he's talking about. I hope it's not the one that's just kitty corner here. Anyways, But I'd like to say that affordable housing, I think we need to make sure that there are state regulations as far as the 5-year, 10-year, and 20-year plan is concerned. We have to take those into account, and I believe at least now with the Palmer Square and the Barclay Square issue, the developments being in place, and the one around Middle Road. I think we've already done our bit, at least as far as this 5-year is concerned. Going forward, we may have to find the appropriate land, or as Rocco says, see how the land can be purchased so that the town has the reserves to decide accordingly.
Thank you. Mr. Emma.
Again, as a planning board member, I can't comment on any plans before the board. I'd just like to say Potter's Farm is not part of COA. The only way to going forward to reduce the lands available is to put them in Rossi. Therefore, they cannot be part of the future COA land inventory. So it's vitally important that we put the cross farm acreage and the bayonet acreage into Rossi, so they can only be used for open space purposes and recreation. The more land we put into Rossi, the less land that can be developed for COA in the future.
Thank you. Do you want to add any more?
That's it. Thank you.
Okay. The next one will begin with Mr. Didi. It's about historic homes. The township owns 2 historic homes on Bayonet Farm and 1 at Cross Farm. What would you like to do with them, and how, if elected, would you make that happen?
Well, as far as historic homes are concerned, they are to be treasured, and I believe that there are both federal and state level programs that are there to help us preserve historic farms, historic homes, and I think we need to make sure that those incentives are made available to both to Homedell and other developers, to be able to preserve those Homedell historic homes. I think we need to make sure that historic homes remain the way they are, and they're architecturally protected appropriately.
Thank you. Mr. Emma.
Sorry, I unmuted myself. I was lucky enough to attend the Monmouth Conservation Foundation's gala this weekend, picnic and barbecue at Bayonet Farms, and I got a firsthand look at the Harding House. So obviously, These are beautiful, beautiful historic homes that need to be preserved. And I'm, again, my record indicates that I'm a very big fan of open space and historic homes. Again, one of the reasons Preserve Homedell has come out and endorsed me.
Thank you. And Mr. Impreveduto.
100% preserve them any way we can. I mean, the history of our township, preserving that history is crucial to the bucolic charm of our town. It's crucial to our culture, you know, and I think that's the one thing, you know, we always want to remember, you know, there's a foundation that's been set here, right? And we need to honor that foundation, that cultural foundation that we have any way we can. And the preservation of those properties and those homes is critical to that. And likewise, as we seek to move forward and advance, we do so within the culture of our town. So money should always be set aside for preservation. Those homes should always be maintained and taken care of. And if anything, I'd really like it. Maybe they do it already. I don't remember from when I was a kid. I'd love for our children to get tours of those homes or around those homes when they have the opportunity with the school district.
Good idea. Okay, the next question is about campaign contributions. We'll begin with Mr. Emma. Have you accepted any campaign contributions from builders, developers, or other professionals doing business with Homedell, or do you plan to in the future? And second part of the question, the Township Committee recently passed an ordinance to restrict campaign donations from affordable housing developers doing business with the town. Should this pay-to-play ordinance be expanded to all professionals?
That's a great question. And again, I absolutely have taken no money from any developers. And as I was going to say, the reason for that pay for play ordinance was because of my opponents, the previous mayor, Impreveduto, taking money from the developer that is actually in front of the planning board right now. So I will absolutely pledge not to take any money from any developers. And it's also an interesting point as far as the professionals. We should look into maybe expanding that to the professionals as well.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Impreveduto.
Sure. I just want to, I think I need to clarify something for everybody. My name is Rocco Impreveduto. It's 2021 and I was never the mayor. I just want to make sure everybody understands that. Yeah, look, you know, if money comes in and it comes in legally, then I will accept it legally. I don't believe I've taken money from developers, but I don't have the list, right? It's not something I'm particularly interested in one way or the other. I've got a number of donations from people all across town and Homedell residents. Expanding pay to play, expanding a prohibition on pay to play, sure, right? What matters most is that we're all on a level playing field here, right? So if we make a determination that no developers can donate, fantastic. If we make a determination that no professionals can donate, fantastic. Then we all abide by that law and we move forward, right? Ethics and transparency are critical to these campaigns and to these efforts to lead our town and serve our town. And I'll pledge to continue to lead my campaign and run my campaign ethically and transparently. And I will abide by the laws that exist.
Thank you. And Mr. Diddi.
I think that transparency in developer donations and in the issuance of special ordinances is necessary. I believe there have been cases where developers have donated to certain developments, whether it's the AstroTurf or otherwise, the Capelli complex, where some transparency, I believe, was lacking, if I may so use the word, was lacking. And as far as pay to play is concerned, I think this is a very important issue. You know, I hear that the tax map digitization, which was a $160,000 services contract, you know, was awarded, you know, on a single bid basis, whereas I believe any services contracts over 20,000 have to have an RFP and need to go for an RFP. So why was this $160,000 contract awarded without an RFP? You know, and I believe that, you know, it needs to be looked into because was it a pay to play issue and certain donations were made, you know, to affect that change? I don't know, but these are certainly issues that need to be looked into. And I'm all for no pay to play and transparency in donations
Thank
and
you.
transparency in issuance.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next question. It's about the Rossi, ROSI. We'll start with Mr. Impreveduto. What are the advantages and disadvantages of putting the land by Cross Farm on the Rossi, recreation and open space inventory?
What are the advantages and disadvantages?
Yes.
Preserving that land against development, I think, is the primary advantage. Now, I don't think I see a disadvantage to that. I think what's, again, what's critical to me, and I've said it many times over, maintaining the culture of our town, ensuring that, the rolling fields and the bucolic charm maintain, and sustaining that property and that land to make sure it doesn't get developed. In terms of disadvantages, I really can't see any off the top of my head right now. It's something I go back and think about for sure. But by going down that road and ensuring that land never gets developed, I think that's the primary advantage from my perspective.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Didi. You're on mute. You're still on mute.
Yeah, could you repeat the question, please?
Sure.
Sorry.
What are the advantages and disadvantages of putting the land by Cross Farm on the Rossi, recreation and open space inventory?
As I said, on land issues, I'm at the moment, I'm neutral. And on a case-by-case basis, as more detail is known and understood, I'll be able to give my input appropriately. I look to join a team and not individually. So there's a team at the Township Council, and I need to consult before I make any such or form my opinion regarding this issue.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Emma.
Yeah, as I previously stated, obviously the biggest advantage of putting of those lands in Rossi is to get it off potential inventory lists for the 2025, the next phase of the COA property inventory. So that's obviously what needs to be done on all open space that we have. Put as much as we can into Rossi. That's the only way to take that property right out of consideration for any future COA development. You guys would know this better than I, but I think the only disadvantage is if it goes into Rossi, I believe it's subject to green acres, which means anyone can use it. I might be wrong about that, but again, I don't know that there's any other disadvantages other than it may be classified as green acres, which means other towns and everyone has to have access to it.
Thank you. Next question. We'll begin with Mr. Didi. This is about lawn signs. Many candidates have posted large unsightly political banners about town, which can be distracting for drivers. Would you consider an ordinance that limits political signs to lawn sign size?
Very clear position on this. I think that large banners, as we've been seeing lately from both my opponents, I think they are an eyesore and reduce our community's open space image to ourselves and to New Jersey visitors at large coming through our community. I think we need to have certain rules where such large signs, I believe, should not be there and should be very limited to only certain times, but also only of much smaller sizes. All this brand building is just a little bit, pardon me, going too far.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Emma.
I actually think we have much more important issues that we need to address rather than the size of our banners and lawn signs. Put your phone down and drive safely. And if you see a banner on the side of the road, just keep driving. But I think there's much better issues, more important issues that we can tackle rather than limiting the size of our banners. We have to get our word out.
Okay, Mr. Impreveduto.
As long as we're on a level playing field, I'm open to anything. So yeah, I think, are there other more important, more pressing matters? Sure. But if the decision came down, if it was discussed and we eliminate banners, we eliminate banners. Again, if we're all on a level playing field and we go to lawn signs, then fantastic, we go to lawn signs. And then maybe you work harder and you get more of your lawn signs out on properties. To me, it's whatever the rules are determined, and whatever we think is best for the town and for our culture and our image. I'm all for it. Doesn't faze me one way or the other. I think we can. I think again, as long as we're all starting from the same place and playing by the same rules, let's get rid of them.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, we're back to sports, starting with Mr. Emma. Considering the township survey did not point out a substantial need for extra fields, sports fields, why do you think we need them, if you do?
Obviously, you're going to hear more and more of the reason for the sports community wanting additional fields is because of the drainage issue. I don't know that we actually do need one, but let's have the debate. It's got to be in the right place. It's got to be open and transparent, and it's obviously got to be limited, for Homedell kids and not for outside for-profit groups. As far as, is this a slam dunk? I would say it's absolutely not. I do understand as being an ex-coach the need for them, but I'm not here to say that I wholeheartedly agree with turf fields. But I do think the conversation needs to be discussed in an open and transparent manner. I mean, the survey was clear. I think if you did that survey again, though it's 3 years ago, you're going to get the same exact result. The sports contingent in town is a vocal one, but it is the minority. Let's remember it's not the majority. The seniors in town don't want to pay extra taxes. That would probably result to raise the money for those turf fields. And again, let's remember that HYAA was in the room and gave those recommendations for the money to be spent from the $2.5 million bond that was passed for recreation. So even they didn't put turf fields at the top of their list. In fact, it came in 15th or 16th or something.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Impreveduto.
Yeah, look, I think it's worth consideration. I think the one thing, look, nothing takes precedence over public safety. Nothing takes precedence over taxes, right? And seniors make up 22% of our township. They're on fixed income. No one in their right mind would propose raising taxes on them for something that they'll frankly never use. So I do believe we can do this within budget. Again, a turf field over a 30-year period on average is a 0.3% of our budget or less, as you assume the township budget increases in out years. And again, to my point earlier, it would benefit, approximately a third of all kids in the district, which amounts to probably 15 or 20% of the households. I think the one thing that's changed since the last survey that was done, and by the way, I have no kids that play the sport, but it's an observation, is the amount of kids and the explosive growth of lacrosse and how big that's become in town. And I think that was probably a tangible change from last time. And I think that's why it should be considered. Again, it's got to be in the right spot. It's got to be, I think at the high school, at the pool club are two areas where it could go. Is it turf at all costs? No. Is it worth evaluating? Is it something that I'm seeing an increasing need for, and not necessarily from a vocal minority? I think from the number of people getting more involved in healthier activities. But again, it doesn't come at the expense of the dollars we put into public safety, or it doesn't come at the expense of raising taxes, particularly when we're looking at seniors on fixed incomes.
Thank you. And Mr. Diddi.
Well, I don't know how Rocco can talk about on one hand, reducing taxes for seniors, and on the other hand, perhaps paying for a turf field. I just don't understand, how that is so absolutely essential as far as Homedell is concerned. We as far as the school is concerned, the school has a turf field, but perhaps information is ammunition, and we need to organize. Maybe there should be another survey, and that survey in the future can then support or not support such a measure.
Okay, thank you very much. That is the end of our questions. So I will give it back to Karen now.
Oh, okay. It's time for the closing remarks. What order are they, Regina? Last 2 minutes, backwards order. We started with Mr. Diddi, so we begin with Mr. Impreveduto.
Impreveduto.
Oh, it's my turn?
Yes, 2
Okay.
minutes.
These closing comments, sorry, I
Great.
forgot about them.
So look, first of all, thank you so much for having me and having us here. I think it's been a really lively discussion. I think, I appreciate everyone's perspectives for sure. I think these are great questions and a great opportunity for me to be able to speak to folks en masse. At the end of the day, as I mentioned before, this is an election about vision and about ideas and about public service. I'm the only candidate sitting here that's already agreed that if I win, I'll donate my salary back to organizations within Homedell. I don't need your money. I don't want your money. I just want to serve. And the organizations that I looked to donate to should I win are the Homedell Theater Company, HYA, and the Half Century Club. This is really about public service for me. It's the opportunity for me to serve my town in a greater capacity. It's an opportunity for me to govern ethically and with transparency as I'm running my campaign in that fashion. It's an opportunity for me to give back in a more material way. I do believe we can do more. I do believe we can do better. I do believe we can have a vision to serve our public better. I think we have the opportunity for a rebate, a tax rebate to provide relief to many people across the town. It won't be a windfall, right? But it'll be something. And so to the point earlier about recreation, but keeping taxes down, maybe it's a matter of when the surplus exists, that's when we decide to budget and cut the check, right? We know we can legally do that. Or maybe it's time to lobby the state to change some of those rules and to get their permission to do so. At the end of the day, this is why my platform is all inclusive. We sit here, we know we can do more to honor our veterans. We know we can do more to invest in our kids. That $300,000 the township will not pay for school security. That should be redirected back to our kids. That is, to me, a non-starter, if people disagree with that. Certainly services for our seniors. I've outlined the many ideas I have to provide benefits to them, services to the town. And again,
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Emma.
I'm proud to be endorsed by Mayor Greg Bontempo, who, along with the TC Town Council, has kept the municipal tax rate flat for 5 years. Greg was mayor for 3 of those 5 years. That's the kind of real endorsement that resonates with the taxpayers in our town. I'll continue to work diligently with Mayor Bontempo to keep our taxes flat. Mayor Bontempo, I appreciate and thank you for your support and your confidence in me. Listen, talk is cheap. A candidate can say or do or promise anything they want. The true measure of a leader is what have their past actions demonstrated. My record of community activism is well documented. You said you served the community in a variety of ways. I just didn't hear any of those ways. I firmly ascribe to the theory of actions speak louder than words. Please compare and contrast my record of engagement to my opponent's. The choice is clear. He simply has no record to run on. My opponent wants to run on his family name, which he thinks is a positive. However, you can't have it both ways. Running on your family name, but not willing to defend the actions or record of that name. My family name is Emma, and I have no interest in a political dynasty. I humbly ask for your support on June 8th. Ron Emma, column 5. Thank you very so much for the opportunity tonight.
Thank you. And Mr. Diddi.
Yeah. Thanks once again to CILU for organizing this forum. Thanks to Homedell residents for joining in. There are several federal programs to implement clean energy, and we need to capitalize on the incentives offered by the current federal administration. I'm glad Homedell received support from the CARES Act. I support enhancement of community solar and the start of an energy storage policy in Homedell. The Homedell school budget usually had a 2% inflationary budget increase. Vicki Flynn, chairperson of the Board of Ed, who's running for New Jersey Assembly, under whom Rocco works as vice chair of her campaign, proposed a flat tax this year for Homedell that shortchanges the school system by $1 million. Transparency in developer donations and in the issuance of special ordinances is necessary. Years ago, then Mayor Serena DiMasso promised to share money from the pilot program with the Board of Ed. It would be good for inflow of funds from Bellworks and the pilot program to include funding for the township and eventually the Board of Ed budget once the discretionary spend or at Board of Ed is more in check. I must say that the Republicans have been open to selling open space and promoting a new AstroTurf. I'm neutral on swaps of land being proposed with the county, but feel each specific case needs a review. There's an election. This is an election to a 3-year term. Current issues in front of the town may be different from the ones that we may face in the next 3 years. Who knew about COVID a couple years back? I believe that my family values and my finance background will hold me in good stead to
Thank
add.
you. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I pass it off to Karen, I would like, Mr. Didi, if you can tell us how people can reach you. Do you have a website or a Facebook page?
You need to unmute.
You're muted.
We'll have a website and a Facebook page coming up shortly. Meanwhile,
Okay.
it's the Democratic Party,
On
committee
Facebook?
that needs to be reached at,
Okay, and Mr. Emma, you told us before, but if you could repeat it.
Emma for Homedell TC@gmail.com and HomedellRepublicanParty.org.
Emma for Homedell TC at Gmail.
Yes,
Okay, is it number 4 or FOR?
number 4.
Okay. Okay, and Mr. Impreveduto.
You're muted.
I don't know how that happened. I'm sorry. So RoccoImpreveduto.com and on Facebook.com/vote for Rocco. And thank you very much, everybody. I really do appreciate it.
You're
Yeah.
welcome.
I'd like to just say that my email is rahul.didi@icloud.com.
Okay.
I'll be happy to respond.
rahul.diddi@icloud.com. Okay, thank you very much. So people can ask you questions directly.
Thank you
Okay,
very much.
you're welcome.
Thank you.
Now I'll
Thank
pass it
you.
off to Karen.
All right. I get to closing. Thank you, everyone, for attending, everyone in the audience for attending, and thank you, candidates, again, for sacrificing your family lives and giving your time to us and willingness to serve the community. We hope everyone who came gained insight into the candidates to help you in your voting decision-making. Everyone who received a Republican ballot or chooses to vote in the Republican primary can choose between Mr. Emma or Mr. Impreveduto. The Democrats have had a chance to see their candidate in Mr. Didi.
Who was running also in June, but unopposed. You
Yeah.
can still vote for him.
Yeah, but there's unopposed.
That's okay.
If you missed aspects of this event or want to rewatch it, the link to the forum will be posted on our CILU Facebook page. To repeat, for information on how to vote, you can go to monmouthcountyvotes.com. And thank you all for attending. If you enjoyed this event and want to join our group, because we would love to always have more people to join us, our website is homedell-cilu.org. So, and we're on Facebook, Citizens for Informed Land Use -CILU, or you can often contact Regina or myself. An informed citizenry requires a lot of people willing to be together and speaking with one another and speaking honestly like you all did, and that's very good. The more people who join us, the more informed we can become, and the more we can accomplish to enrich our wonderful town of Homedell. So thank you very much for attendance, and thank you guys for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you
Sheila,
very
for the
much.
work that you do.
Very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Good night.